it's eating better, eating more healthfully, and knowing where their food is coming from. It's not that there's anything especially wrong with canned foods, but none of that stuff that I care about in terms of, I don't know, the good food movement happens because of canned foods.
Could you talk about how the new administration is relaxing these standards?
Yeah, good point. I meant to bring that up. I'm glad that you reminded me. So with the new administration, like everybody everywhere, we're a little bit like, what's going to happen and on edge and not 100% sure. The only thing so far that's happened is that Sonny Perdue is now the Secretary of Agriculture, and he was the governor of Georgia, and he recently released a memo that there were going to be new and even more stringent sodium targets starting next school year, so starting in August. And those have been put on hold for now. And then also, they're relaxing a little bit some of the requirements around whole grain rich foods. Again, the whole grain rich, as far as the government is concerned, just means that something, if it's a grain item, it has to be at least half whole grain. So if it's a baked good, it has to be at least half of that. Something like brown rice we serve a lot of is 100% whole grain, but that's still whole grain rich. I think they're trying to make it a little bit easier for students or for schools to get a waiver to not serve whole grain stuff every single day. Again, they have tabled more stringent sodium requirements, and then there's also, they're loosening up slightly the milk regulation. This is what I've seen so far. That's come through all the way down from the state level down to me. Personally, I like it just because we're doing everything from scratch. Almost all of our recipes are generated in-house, and I was not looking forward to going back through and recalculating how much sodium was in every single serving I serve and having to rework a lot of those recipes. So from a pure laziness standpoint, I appreciate it. I do think that the targets are pretty aggressive already. I'm not a certified nutritionist or anything like that. I can't make any claims as to whether it's a benefit from a health standpoint or not. So right now, it's really just that a couple of the next parts of the rollout of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act are tabled. Obviously, there's talk of them completely repealing the program and all of that, and I'm not in support of that. I think that it's a good move to have increased requirements for fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, there's no way around that, I don't think. And at my school, I don't know if we would, if it were to go away, if we would completely follow the Healthy Hungry Kids Act, or if we would come up with some other, metric by which to guide our program. But I don't know. I guess we would cross that bridge if we get to it. But that's what we're at the moment.
Are there other cafeterias in the area that do what you do?
Not a ton. There are folks who are interested. Occasionally, a couple times a year, like I'll meet with somebody, or like another charter school will send somebody to spend a day with us to kind of see what we got going on. There are some aspects of what we're doing, lots of little parts of what we're doing that happen all over. Farm to school has been a real push in the greater school nutrition community for a couple of years now. A lot more federal money coming towards it. My limited experience with it is it's kind of like, I don't know, there could be a lot more, it could be a lot better and a lot more, I think. The farm to school stuff that I've seen, just from going to conferences and like the Georgia Organics Farm to School Day up in Athens each school year and stuff, are like, in a given county, they're serving apples grown in that county one school day. You know what I mean? And while that's great and it's an awesome PR move, I don't think it's like long-term substantial change either. You know what I mean? And so I would like to see a lot more being done. I think that there are farm to school programs at a lot of schools, and there's no real definition as far as what your farm to school program is. There's no requirement as to you got to have this, that, or the other to be a farm to school program. So it's it's kind of a it's kind of a sexy catch-all term, and certainly aligns with a lot of what a lot of people are concerned about in terms of the food supply in our country. But it's a little bit vague, and so I don't know. Again, I don't have other school nutrition experience beyond where I'm at, so this is really just me looking at it, from at a conference. You know what I mean? I'm not like day-to-day involved with it. I haven't seen other efforts. I don't want to slander anybody's farm to school efforts, but I do wish that it was more of a big part of what was going on in school food. can you say the last part again? Are there problems with the way the farm to school programs?
Or like HHFKA, like any problems with it?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Are there any problems with the way HHFKA is now?
I don't know. I don't have problems with the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. I think that I appreciate the goals that they had to set out. I find it difficult sometimes to reach the sodium requirements. I have minor gripes about the whole grain. I wish that I didn't have to serve whole grain pasta. You know, I don't think it's very good. It takes over the dish. These are minor complaints. You know, I think overall the aims of the program are good. I think that, you know, as far as I understand it, it has increased the amount of fresh fruits and vegetables that students around the country are eating. I'm not in a position to be like really knowing the ins and outs of that much. I'm very much on one, you know, very small level of this. But I like the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act overall. I support it. I don't have any personal major critiques of it. I understand the ones, you know, concerns about food waste. And I think that is a real concern. It's something that we're always trying to look at more. How can we get, it's great if you put all this time into sourcing something great and spend a lot of time making it, but then if it just goes straight from the tray into the trash can and the student never eats it, it's a bit of a waste, and that definitely happens at our school. It's something that we're working on. As far as the increased costs for school food authorities, I don't know. I mean, I only know it on my little microcosm. We're not running at a profit yet. That's something that we are aiming to do. My school will probably start doing, or my program will probably start doing, I know we'll start doing some catering work outside of just the school nutrition work in order to make up some of that money and help pay for some of our staff. That's less related to the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act and its requirements than it is on the model that we use, though. But I understand that is a concern. At least some have made that it's too expensive on individual schools. But I don't know. I'm not seeing that.
Do the small farms you buy from use properly GM accelerated crops?
You know, for the most part, the small farms that I buy from are piecemeal. It's not the main part of my purchasing. It's occasional. Some of the ones, like I mentioned a distributor that supports minority-owned farms in West Georgia. I'm buying a bit more from them, looking to buy always more and more. Most of the stuff is either sustainably grown or sometimes integrated pest management. Some of it is conventional. Of that conventional stuff, it's possible that some of it was genetically modified, but generally you're not, almost anytime you're buying, at least on the level of like you're at a restaurant or a school or whatever buying the food, you're not seeing that information, not knowing. It's got to be pretty explicit that it was, you know, non-GMO. Sometimes people will make those claims in order to, you know, it's a selling point, and maybe explains why something is more expensive or, you know, other those things. But generally, I don't know that, you know, if something is genetically modified or not if I'm purchasing it. Yeah?
Do you think that if there was increased federal funding for farm-to-school programs, they should just increase the funding for the current program or restructure it?
I mean, me personally, I would say that the current program hasn't been in place all that long. I think that more funding would be welcome. I tried to share a lot of different ideas that we have and ways that we would use more funding if we were able to get it. I don't have any major problems with the way that it's being implemented right now. I think that overall the guidelines can produce a pretty healthy, balanced meal. I also don't know, you know, what a completely new scrapped and new system would be. So it'd be hard to weigh, you know, this existing system versus a nebulous, you know, something else. But again, I don't have any major problems with it. I think overall it's a pretty good system, and it's I don't know, something that we've been able to work within and not avoid.
Are you familiar with the state plan?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's been 15 years since I had any real thoughts about Counterplan. So, I mean, I haven't been in debate since about 2000, maybe 2001. I mean, so I imagine that it could be a pretty persuasive argument this school year. And it's also weird in that all this federal money is being administered on a state level. So there'd be some, you know, interesting arguments to be made both ways. But I can't speak to any of the evidence or much of the states' rights, writing or anything like that.
Do you think that your program spills over to what kids eat at home and like the choices that they make outside of school?
It does, actually. I have some, just piecemeal evidence and anecdotal evidence from parents, but yes, it does. Some of that is like in the work that we're doing here. Each term that I teach this class, I always get at least one email from a parent that so-and-so has been, cooking at home, wasn't doing it before, is now trying to, show off all of these different dishes that we've made in school and making that for their family. That's been really rewarding. I know also hear from parents of some younger students that, their kids are trying this or that. We put out a cookbook at our school. It was mostly work from our PTA and some really involved parents, but they took the recipes that we were writing for the school, that served between 300 and 500 and shrunk them down and made them so that you'd make them at home for, to serve 4 or 6 or whatever. They did a really wonderful job. I wish I'd brought one of those books. I'm sorry that I haven't, but, some parent was like a professional graphic designer, did a lot of good work on it. So it looks good. It doesn't look like a cheapo book. It looks like a proper cookbook. And a lot of students help that or use that, and I hear about that all the time from parents. So yes, I do know that it does, at least at some level, influence what our students are eating at home. Not all of them, obviously. I mean, I've still got students who bring crap or nothing to school for their meals, but yeah, we do have tangible benefits. I also have the benefit, again, of having a 7, almost 8-year-old at the school, my daughter. So I can, if we were running something new, I can find out immediately, did students like that or did they not like that or whatever. I get a lot of good instant feedback, which is useful.
You would agree that this plan, well, it works great at a school like your school where you have lots of involvement. It's not going to extend to every school across the U.S., right? You can't extend this great of a program to every school.
Oh, the way that we do it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely parts of what we're doing that are not expandable.
So what do you think the best way would be to extend a program similar to this to schools across the U.S.?
I think just some of what we were planning on doing with that money, like no one else is necessarily going to start a mushroom farm. You know what I mean? That was kind of like a little fun project for me on the side. I've never grown mushrooms. I would like to try it, but increasing just generally, we were planning on increasing our purchasing of local produce by 15%. Just having those funds in order to make those purchases and search out, a lot of times that is a complaint that I hear that like, you can find something local, but then it's so much more expensive than this other thing. So just having money to subsidize those purchases is one way that could be, is applicable anywhere. That's not in any way specific to what we're doing in my school. Some of the more teaching opportunities that we do are built into the way that our school handles curriculum and instruction, and I don't think that those are necessarily applicable to others, but just overall increasing, for a certain percentage of your purchasing could certainly be part of it. And then I think, I don't know that you could necessarily mandate it, or you might get into a lot of trouble trying to mandate that people cook only, from scratch on the level that we're doing it. It would be a great cost in terms of labor. But that's another thing that money, that's a problem that money can solve is, if you're running a high labor cost, if you've got more money coming in, then that helps. But those parts are the main parts. So I would say more staff for food and just greater purchasing.
So do you pay attention to what gets thrown away in the cafeteria?
I do. I wish I had a better way of doing that, because right now it's beholden on me to make sure that I'm just close to the trash cans and just seeing what's getting eaten, what's not. Interviewing, my daughter to make sure that I know from her what's going on, and just I have a really good relationship and a personal relationship with a lot of the students, and so we hear about that.
How do you feel when you
take
see all
requests?
this great food getting thrown away?
It stinks. It really stinks. I mean, and not only that, like there's, just to see something go into the trash completely untouched is heartbreaking, and it happens so much. And like we serve only fresh fruit. It's a lot of apples, especially because they are Georgia product. I can get great apples from LJ, from October through February, so we serve a lot of Georgia apples then. They're a little bit more expensive than just regular conventional apples, but obviously fits in line with everything else that we're doing. We make apple butter with the ones that come in, that are like dented up a little bit, and that gets served as one of the components in one of our breakfast menus. And so on days where I have the time, I'm just like, a hawk at the trash can, trying to keep kids from throwing away whole apples, because like that's apple butter going into the trash. You know what I mean? We try and keep an eye on it. I don't have a great system in place for really knowing what our food wastes are. I would love to have that kind of capability to know, to really study it and see how much of what I'm doing has an effect on what students are eating, and how much they're wasting. But yeah, it's really just purely anecdotal at this point. It's just kind of me checking it out, trying to be aware of it. When something just really doesn't work, we don't run it again. We try and we do like between 1 and 3 new menus a month. So at this point, 3 years in, almost everything that we're doing, we know the people are liking it, and we know about how many we're going to sell as well. So it makes preparing something from scratch a lot easier and a lot better. And there's a lot less waste coming out of year 3 than there certainly was in year 1, year 2. That's an ongoing thing. But yeah, it's a real battle. It's a real struggle. And that's, again, part of my hope for the program is that by keeping at it, and it's not just something that we're doing, it's something that we do all the time. Hopefully by the time these students are in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, if they've been eating some of our food since kindergarten, they eventually will try these things that maybe they throw away this year, but if they're seeing that again next year, or I've heard their friends say how great it is, eventually they'll try it. That's my hope. That's another hand, I think, but yeah. All right. Is that it? Time? I think that's.
Yep, that's it.
All right.
That's it. Y'all